I don't think I can follow any of that, so well done, well done. It is always nice to grab this microphone, and I can't let an opportunity to pass without making playful fun at Henry Nixon. So, Henry, it is great that the Attorney General is here and not for you. So, carrying the moniker of Pennsylvania's top law enforcement officer certainly cannot be an easy one, considering that at least of the two last elected Attorney Generals, one went on to become governor, and another not so much. This is a 50% success rate. But beyond the politics of the position, there is the real world and very sobering challenge of doing the job and dealing with heroin and the opioid crisis, dealing with gangs throughout our Commonwealth, dealing with human trafficking, fraud, or scams. And it's a position that I'm sure that even, for instance, Coroner Pam Gay could attest, or our own district attorney, who unfortunately couldn't make it today because he's dealing with the threat at Central York High School. So it's a position that, unfortunately, you are introduced to sometimes the very worst that humanity has to offer. But as any other elected official, be it Representative Kristen Phillips Hill, Commissioner Hoke, or even former Representative Bev McGrath can attest that often in those moments of tragedy, you sometimes see the absolute best in humanity. So ladies and gentlemen, Josh Shapiro, serving as our Attorney General, is the Commonwealth's top prosecutor and chief law enforcement officer. He was elected and sworn into office on January 17, 2017, and throughout his career in public office, he has risen above politics to work across party lines and with law enforcement and elected officials of all ideological spectrum to take on the status quo and certainly to protect Pennsylvanians. Some of his top priorities have included protecting our seniors, our veterans, small businesses, and consumers from those scams and fraud, to implementing comprehensive integrity agenda to ensure that the people across our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania are heard and can have faith in this position and in our Pennsylvania justice system. And obviously, in directing Pennsylvania's aggressive fight against the heroin and opioid epidemic. Also very grateful to have Dr. Matt Howey here with us today, who is the director of our opioid collaborative, the former task force. In Josh's 13 months in office, our Attorney General has, among other things, presented felony charges against 2 Philadelphia area drug dealers after seizing 7.2 kilograms, which is almost 16 pounds for those metric system users, of heroin and fentanyl, valued at more than $2.6 million. The amount seized would have produced 250,000 doses for sale on the streets in Philadelphia. Prior to serving as Attorney General, he has served as the chairman of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, where he worked on behalf of victims for criminal justice reform, earning the trust of law enforcement officers across the Commonwealth, and prior to that, serving on the Board of Commissioners for Montgomery County, and then elected as the state representative from the 153rd District, going into office with another AG from York County, Eugene D. Pasquale, when he had served in the House as well. Josh is a graduate of the University of Rochester, where he earned a law degree, where he earned his bachelor's and then earning a law degree at night from Georgetown University Law Center. He was in private practice for more than a decade and is a member of the Pennsylvania Bar. Josh was raised in Montgomery County, where he met his high school sweetheart, Lori, and where they are raising their 4 children. Ladies and gentlemen, sincere honor to have with us in New York today our Attorney General Josh Shapiro.
Henry, I don't know where you are or who you are, but I'm not here for you. To my friend Kevin Schreiber, thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for the important work you're doing on economic development, economic opportunity, job opportunities for all here in the York County region. I know you did a great job in the State House. We miss you serving in Harrisburg there, but I know you're serving in an important way now. So thank you. And you referenced Representative Kristen Phillips Hill. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And I have to say, the representative, along with your senators in your delegation and the other representatives, have worked together on a number of key initiatives, including battling the heroin and opioid epidemic, which I'll talk about here today. And we thank you for the work that you do. And I see my former colleague, Commissioner Hoke, is with us, and thank you for the work that you do in your county, and your coroner, who was referenced, who I know unfortunately is unbelievably busy now as a result of this epidemic, and we appreciate the work that Pam Gay does. My old friend Bev Macrith is here, so I know she's there. She is. Bev used to give me a hard time all the time when I stayed out. She still does, but always for good causes. I see other friends. Niles is here, and just many people in this room that I've had the opportunity to get to know over the years. I'm sorry that your new DA, Dave Sunday, isn't here, but we've had the opportunity to already begin working together on a number of key fronts. I didn't come today like one of the students who just spoke. And by the way, how inspiring are these students, particularly in the time that we are facing in this country? The students stand up and they are. But like the last student, I think, who spoke, I didn't bring prepared remarks. I came today to just talk a little bit about the work that we're doing in the Attorney General's office. And then most importantly, I'd like to take your questions. I'd like the opportunity to engage and have a little bit of a dialogue with you. Kevin, in his attempt to be funny in his introduction, spoke about my two predecessors. One who went on to be governor, Governor Corbett, and then of course my elected predecessor who's going to a different place. And as my eldest child, Sophia, my 16-year-old, would say, you know, Dad, there were some issues, as she would call it, when you took over. So let me begin just by talking a little bit about how we've rebuilt the foundation in the Office of Attorney General, an office that was under siege and facing serious challenges. Certainly, we had a lot of repair work to do internally. I set out to hire the strongest, smartest, most diverse staff in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Office of Attorney General. We've succeeded in doing that. We're not done yet, but we've made great strides in that area. More women than men in positions of leadership. People of color, LGBTQ brothers and sisters, people from all walks of life and all corners of the Commonwealth, because I fundamentally believe that at the end of the day, when I sit down around the table in my office and make a serious decision about whether to take away someone's liberty, whether to investigate a particular person or company, whether to file a lawsuit, that you have to have differing opinions and diverse opinions around the table. People who are Democrats, people who are Republicans, people from York, people from Philly, Pittsburgh, and everywhere in between. Because at the end of the day, the thing that is so important about each and every decision I make is not that you agree with it, but that you have faith that the decisions we are making were made for the right reasons and are fair and are just. And that is what we have set out to do, and that is the attitude we've set out to restore in the Office of Attorney General. I fundamentally believe that has to be at the core of everything you do if you're going to have the confidence of the public and be in a position to go out and attack the big challenges that we face. Big challenges like dealing with protecting consumers. Big challenges like making sure people's rights and interests, no matter what you look like or where you're from or who you pray to or who you love, that each and every person's rights and interests are defended here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Making sure that our children are safe online, in their schools, and in their communities. Making sure that communities that are racked by gun violence are made safer while people's rights to bear arms are consistently protected. And, most importantly, battling what I think is the most serious public safety and public health threat that we face in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania today, and that is the heroin and opioid epidemic. A crisis that today is claiming the lives of 14 Pennsylvanians, and tomorrow will claim the lives of 14 more, and 14 the day after, and so on and so forth. We lost nearly 5,000 Pennsylvanians last year due to the heroin and opioid epidemic, a 28% increase in York County. No county, no community is immune from this crisis. I've taken on a little bit of a different approach in trying to battle this as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. See, I don't believe that we can arrest our way out of this crisis. I believe we need to understand fundamentally that someone suffering from drug addiction is battling a disease, not necessarily committing a crime. And so when you begin with that level of understanding, and you understand it's going to take a multidisciplinary approach to dealing with it, then you're left with a number of different fronts that you battle this on. First, you've got to make sure that you're locking up the dealers, the serious dealers that are infecting our communities with this poison. Poisons like heroin and fentanyl and carfentanil, which is literally elephant tranquilizer. Yet it's being mixed up in the heroin today and causing death at an alarming rate. So we go after the dealers. And not street level dealers necessarily, but higher level dealers that are harming our communities. We had a major pipeline that was running from New York City through York County out to Altoona that we shut down in 2017. Kevin made reference to the fact that we took 250,000 bags of heroin, 250,000 potential death sentences off the streets of Philadelphia just about a week ago. We arrest, on average, 5 drug dealers a day every single day I've been in office. That is a 19% increase. You'll notice I'm a data guy. It's one thing to stand up here and say something, it's a whole other thing to be able to back it up with data. 5 drug dealers a day, which represents a 19% increase over the year before, over 2016, the year before I took office. Getting these poisons and these dealers off our communities makes a difference. But I think you also have to understand that's only part of it. We have noticed that there are too many doctors, too many health providers who are fueling this crisis by either giving away for wrongful reasons or selling prescription drugs, otherwise known as diverting a legal prescription drug for illegal use. And I made it a priority to go increase our diversion arrests when I took office about 13 months ago. Our diversion arrests today are up 72% over what they were the year before I took office. 72%. Most recently, I think it was a doctor in Westmoreland County that had been prescribing opioid painkillers to people who were addicted. Now, some folks will say, well, I don't understand what these pills have to do with heroin. Well, these pills have a lot to do with heroin, because 4 out of every 5 heroin users, 4 out of every 5 heroin users start their path to addiction with a legal prescription drug like an OxyContin or Percocet. 4 out of every 5. By the way, 72% of those folks get those initial pills from a friend, a relative, or what's just laying around in the medicine cabinet. So there is a direct line between these pills that people take and the high they get off and heroin. And if you go try and buy one of these pills on the streets of York City, York County, wherever, you're going to spend about $50 a pill. You want to go buy a bag of heroin, which is so pure today and so plentiful, you're going to spend about $5 or $7 a bag. Thus, the pathway from these pills to heroin to addiction. But like we do with the doctors, like we do with the dealers, our agents out in the field every day follow the supply chain. That's how you lock up the high-level dealers who are infecting our communities with these poisons. So if you're going to follow the path, well, I believe you got to begin with these prescription drugs and with these pharmaceutical companies. That's why Pennsylvania is one of 4 lead states in a 41-state, multi-state investigation into the 5 opioid manufacturers and 3 distributors that provide over 90% of this nation's opioid painkillers. We are one of the lead states in that investigation. These pharmaceutical companies should not be in a position where they should be able to get off scot-free. These pills provide the jet fuel to this crisis, and they need to be held accountable too. While I can't get into details, obviously, about our investigation, I can tell you it is very much ongoing. We are pouring through millions of pages of documents. We are working together with other attorneys general across the country, bipartisan of course, and we're going to make a difference in this crisis here in Pennsylvania. And while we're doing that work in law enforcement, representatives, senators, our great governor are working together to make sure there is more access to treatment. People say to me all the time, General, if you had an opportunity to do one thing to deal with this crisis, what would it be? And of course, I say, well, it's not just one thing, it's multidisciplinary. And then when they say, well, what is the one thing? Truth is, the one thing would be outside of my purview. That is making more treatment available. Giving more people who are accepting personal responsibility, who want to do better, giving them an opportunity to get a bed for treatment over a prolonged period of time. Not 7 days the way some insurance companies provide, and we've challenged insurance companies to change their behavior there, but a prolonged period of treatment to help get people breaking that cycle of addiction and doing better. We also know that we need the public to join us in this fight. If you recall a moment ago, I talked about how 4 out of every 5 heroin users start with a prescription drug, and I said 72% of it get it from a friend or relative or what's laying around in the medicine cabinet. So we need your help getting these pills out of people's medicine cabinets. And so all across Pennsylvania, there's these drug deactivation boxes in courthouses and municipal halls where you can throw away your old pills. It makes a difference. That is something concrete you can do to help us deal with this crisis. 2016, working together with DAs across Pennsylvania, the DEA, and the National Guard, Pennsylvanians disposed of 26 tons of unused prescription drugs. I don't have to point out the obvious. A pill doesn't weigh a whole lot. 26 tons is a lot. In 2017, working together, we nearly doubled that amount of drugs that have been taken out of people's medicine cabinets. Those are people who could have become addicted who weren't. Roughly 20% of those medicines taken out of people's medicine cabinets are opioids. They're dangerous. Help us with this. Get those pills out of people's medicine cabinets. Here's the other thing you can do. There is someone in this room today, either personally or one of their relatives, who needs help, who needs to get access to treatment, who needs someone to listen to them because they're struggling. I guarantee you there's someone in this room, because there's someone in every room in Pennsylvania. We need to make sure that we do away with the stigma associated with addiction. Raising your hand and asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And the more Rotarians, the more business leaders and political leaders, men and women, people of faith, stand up and say, it's okay to ask for help. And when you do, we're going to be there for you. That makes a huge difference, especially in our schools. Especially in our schools, where students know it's not okay to pick up a needle and inject heroin into your veins. But I'm not sure they're all certain whether, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, I'm not sure they're all certain whether or not it's okay to grab a pill out of mom or dad's medicine cabinet. By elevating your voices around the dangers associated with these prescription drugs, around making sure people know that when they ask for help, that's a sign of strength. This is something we can all do to help deal with this crisis. 14 Pennsylvanians a day. We have got to do better. And we are focused in the Attorney General's office like a laser beam on doing better to deal with this crisis. Now, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So while we're doing that, we're out fighting hard to protect consumers every single day. Folks in the Philadelphia area who tried to buy a $35 t-shirt online and got scammed, we got them their 35 bucks back. We also got, that same week, $35 million from Volkswagen because of their faulty ignition switches which were harming our environment. 35 bucks or 35 million. We're out every day trying to protect consumers in Pennsylvania from scams. I'm sure many of you heard of the Equifax data breach. affected over 150 million Americans, 5.6 million Pennsylvanians had their data stolen. The Pennsylvania Attorney General's office is leading a coalition of 48 states investigating Equifax about that data breach. We will recover for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We will protect the data of those individuals who had it lost. And we will not be afraid of any big corporation out there that does anything to undermine the interests of the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Every single day, our consumer protection folks go to work to make sure that our community is best protected. Now, we've got a number of business leaders in this room. And so when I talk about consumer protection, I see some business leaders get a little squirmy in their seats. They don't like when an attorney general talks about regulating business or investigating business. Here's what I would say to you. As a business-friendly elected leader, and have been throughout my entire career, the thing you want most from my office is a level playing field. Because the business leaders in this room today, I'm sure, instead of putting an extra dollar of profit in your pocket, unlike Equifax, you're putting an extra dollar back into your workers, back into protecting the data of the people of Pennsylvania whose information you take hold of, back into making sure that the systems you have in place to producing those widgets ensure safety for your workforce. You're investing the extra money. You're doing it the right way. And so I think you want a level playing field. You want to make sure that your competitors are making those investments as well. And so the more every day we can go out and ensure a level playing field, ensure that every business has an opportunity to succeed when they do it the right way, the better that is for the economy of Pennsylvania, the better that is for you individually. And when we hold those who cut corners accountable, that's a good thing for consumers, and it's a good thing for Pennsylvanians. Every single day, we strive to make the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania a safer place. As I said at the top, whether it's arresting the police chief in Western Pennsylvania who was preying on little girls online, whether it's holding the correction officers in Lackawanna County, where Scranton is, accountable for the rampant and continual sexual abuse of female inmates, as we just did last week. What you should know is that we not only strive to make people safe, but no one in Pennsylvania is above the law. And that we apply the law without fear and without favor. We try to do the right things for the right reasons each and every time. We are building upon now a foundation of integrity, and we're working hard for each and every Pennsylvanian every single day. It's my high honor to serve as Attorney General. I just wrapped up my first year, visited each of Pennsylvania's 67 counties, talked to farmers, talked to business leaders, talked to everybody in between, and listened to them. As one of the students said here, listening is one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader. And I know that this is a time of great concern and consternation for Pennsylvanians, but I also know that this is a time where we should all also be very hopeful and optimistic about the wonderful state we live in and the great opportunities that are out there. It's my job every day to make sure that those great opportunities are available to all Pennsylvanians, that they're protected, they're shielded, and they're safe and secure. I love my work and I'm proud to do it, and I'm proud to be here with Rotarians today, and now look forward to your questions. Thank you all very much. So, Kevin, I'm not sure how it works, if I just call on people or people shout out. Yes, ma'am.
Would you educate us about your position about pharmaceutical companies? They provide a service. I operate on people. I prescribe these, which of course the people need after surgery. Educate us about your feelings about the pharmaceutical companies.
Sure. The question for those of you who didn't hear was, educate us about my feelings about pharmaceutical companies. The woman who asked the question, I guess, operates on them or is involved in the operations, then people need these prescription drugs. Well, first off, I don't have positive or negative feelings about pharmaceutical companies. The truth is, my feelings are irrelevant. I follow the law and I follow evidence where it leads. That is why we are investigating these companies to find out whether or not, over a period of time, they've turned a blind eye to some of the destructive impacts of opioid painkillers. They turn a blind eye to whether or not they are highly addictive. And that is what we're seeking to know. I recognize that the vast, vast majority of people in the medical field do things exactly the right way. I also recognize, I'm not a doctor, but the need for certain painkillers, certain pain medicine. And the last thing I want to do is get in between the relationship between a doctor and a patient. If a doctor determines that a patient needs an opioid painkiller, that's up to the doctor to make that determination. Now, I think it's fair to ask, after you've had your teeth pulled, do you really need 60 days worth of Percocet? Or can you get away with maybe Tylenol with codeine? Or 2 days worth of Percocet? Or 3? These are questions that the medical society is asking. These are questions more and more that insurers are asking by limiting the amount of prescribing doctors can do. Thanks to the prescription drug monitoring program, which the representative and former representative helped put in place, we now are able to track that. I think those are legitimate questions, because when you overprescribe these drugs and they're making their way out there and people are getting addicted to them, then you're creating a greater crisis down the road. But I'm not on some witch hunt. I don't have positive or negative views, and frankly, my views on that don't matter. Again, it's following the law, following the evidence where it leads, holding people accountable who deserve to be held accountable, and most importantly, doing my part to deal with this crisis that we face in Pennsylvania. Yes, ma'am.
What data do you have on minors who are involved in illegal drug trade, whether they're mules or whether they're dealing or whether they're using? I know that it's hard to track data on minors, but then also I'm curious, what about consequences for minors who are being used by adults in the drug trade?
We have made it a priority to deal with human trafficking cases, which oftentimes involve minors, and to deal with other situations where minors end up being coerced either because of an addiction or they are led down a path that creates an addiction. And then they are, and it's hard to talk about it at a lunch, but they are violated. They have all of their personal information taken from them. They're oftentimes removed from their home area to another part of the country. And then they are used for sex. And the folks who are trafficking them take all the money, oftentimes continue to feed their dependency on drugs, usually heroin. And it is an absolute horrible existence for usually these young women. Now, we've had 2 significant busts involving human trafficking where we were able to uncover and infiltrate and end 2 pretty significant human trafficking rings. It's a serious issue where I am going to ask the legislature for some additional authority in that area so that we can better, more quickly jump on these cases. But it is these are the kind of cases that just break your heart and show you, as Kevin said in his opening, really the worst of humanity. It's a priority of ours. It's increasing as drug use and drug addiction is increasing. And it's something we take very, very seriously. Appreciate you asking the question, sir.
You have not alluded at all to any gateway from marijuana, and I'm pretty sure that we will have legalization of marijuana in the state, which I am told is a gateway drug for the opioid crisis. Are you suggesting that's not true, or are you anticipating an increase in opioid problems with respect to marijuana?
Sure. I would just respectfully ask, I had a limited period of time today, so I obviously could not talk about every issue on my mind, otherwise we would have been here for many, many hours. So just because I did not speak about something doesn't mean that it is not important to me. And just so we're not beating around the bush, I'll answer you head on. I do not support legalizing marijuana. I don't think that that is something that the Commonwealth ought to do, and if the legislature begins to go down that path and ask my opinion on it, I would express that. I do think that medicinal marijuana, which has been made legal, will offer a solution to veterans dealing with PTSD, young children dealing with seizures and what have you. I think that's a very different issue. I believe what you were getting at was recreational marijuana, and I do not support that. Am I getting the hook here? I'm afraid to look. One more, all right. Usually when they sidle up, it means get the heck out of here, Mr. Attorney General. Who should I'm not going to choose favorites at the end here, so you pick.
Charlie.
All right. By the way, I was going to choose the guy over there. So I'll tell you what, we'll do two. Charlie, be quick, and then we'll get the gentleman over there.
I didn't have a teleprompter to bring in, so I had to type it out.
Is this the guy that you were? Go ahead.
I had a bad cold last night, so I couldn't. And we've been watching the coming Pennsylvania state constitutional crisis, and I appreciate the opportunity to engage you as our state's Attorney General to see how you will advise Governor Wolf on how he proceeds. It is perfectly legal for the governor to ask the court into the legality of the districting map. It is perfectly legal for the court to ask the legislature to resolve the districting. The constitutional crisis occurred when the court agreed to Mr. Wolf's order.
Charlie, just in the interest of time, you want me to comment on redistricting? Is that what you're getting at with your question
No,
here?
I'll give it to you afterwards.
You give me that. I'll just tell you. Thank you for your question, Charlie.
There was a lot of good things in there.
I mentioned there was, and I'm sorry to deny all of the folks here of that. The question was about redistricting. What would I advise Governor Wolf, what have you? Charlie, I'm going to punt, and here's why I'm going to punt. Because there apparently is a lawsuit being filed today. I do not know if my office will be involved in that. I don't know if I'm named in it. I don't know if I'll be called on to defend the Commonwealth in it. And so I don't think it would be prudent for me to comment on that right here. Last question. Someone
In
at their
the interest of time, I'll defer because we're at the end of the meeting.
All right. Thank you all very much. I enjoyed the chance to be with you. Thank you.